Welcome. This is a space to slow your thoughts, to let ideas unfold, and to imagine what comes next. This is not a story about speed, and not a prediction of technology. This is a gentle journey into a future that learned how to move differently. A future where progress did not disappear, but softened. Where ambition remained, but urgency loosened its grip. Imagine a day that does not demand your attention the moment you wake up. No rush, no silent pressure to begin. Just a quiet sense that the day is already waiting for you. Without expectation. In this future, time is no longer something to manage. It is something to inhabit. And so the day begins. Morning arrives gently here, not with alarms or interruptions, but with a gradual awareness that a new day is unfolding. There's no urgency attached to waking up, no invisible list of things already chasing your attention. Instead, there's balance, a calm recognition that the day ahead does not need to be conquered. People begin their mornings with a sense of quiet orientation, not planning every step, not optimizing every minute, but aligning with what feels meaningful today, with what deserves attention, with what can wait. There's a subtle confidence in the air, a trust that whatever the day contains will be enough time to meet it fully. Morning in this future is not about preparation for stress. It is about readiness for presence. The body wakes without resistance, the mind without tension. Thoughts arrive slowly, without demanding action. There is space to notice how one feels, what one is curious about, and what kind of contribution feels natural today. This is not passivity. It is clarity. A clarity that comes when nothing pulls too hard. The morning does not ask, how much can you achieve today? It asks something quieter. How would you like to move through this day? And for the first time, that question feels sufficient. Work is no longer something that needs to be endured. It is not something people escape from at the end of the day, nor something they define themselves by completely. Work has changed its role. Here, work is understood as a form of expression, a way of contributing, a place where curiosity meets usefulness. People no longer ask, how much time do I have to give? They ask something different. What kind of work feels meaningful today? Not every day looks the same, and it no longer has to. Some days are quiet, focused, almost meditative. Others are collaborative, filled with exchange and shared momentum. There's no constant measurement of output, no invisible clock ticking louder than thought. Quality has replaced urgency, and with it, a deeper sense of satisfaction has returned. In this future, people tend to work in areas that genuinely interest them, not because they were told to follow a passion, but because the system itself no longer punishes curiosity. Work paths are flexible, fluid, open to change. Someone may spend years exploring one field, then move gently into another, without stigma, without loss of dignity. Changing direction is no longer seen as failure. It is seen as learning. Because growth in this world is not linear. It spirals. People are encouraged to notice where their attention naturally flows, where effort feels lighter, where engagement turns into immersion. That is where work begins. Work is rarely isolated here, not because collaboration is enforced, but because it is preferred. The constant comparison of performance has faded into the background. There is no race to outpace others, no pressure to constantly outperform. Instead, people work alongside one another, each bringing their own strengths, each trusting that contribution does not need to look the same. Meetings are fewer, but conversations are deeper. Decisions are not rushed. They are allowed to mature. Silence is no longer awkward. It is recognized as part of thinking. And because no one is being pushed to justify their presence through speed, ideas have time to unfold. Technology still exists here. It has not disappeared, but it has changed its position. It no longer sits at the center, demanding attention, fragmenting focus. Instead, it operates quietly in the background. Artificial intelligence supports work not by replacing human judgment, but by amplifying clarity. It helps organize complexity. It reduces unnecessary repetition. Technology has learned when to step back, and in doing so, it has allowed human attention to become more valuable than ever. At the end of a work period, people do not feel depleted. They feel complete. Not because everything was finished, but because what mattered was given proper care. Work no longer spills endlessly into every corner of life. Boundaries exist, not as rigid rules, but as shared understanding. Time for rest is not something to be earned. It is assumed. And so people leave their work with a quiet sense of fulfillment, knowing that contribution does not require sacrifice of self. In this future, work does not consume life. It supports it. As the day continues, attention begins to shift from contribution to connection, from focused creation to shared presence. In this future, community is no longer something people are constantly pulled into. It is something they step into with intention. Connection has slowed down, but deepened. People no longer gather because schedules demand it, or because absence will be noticed. They gather because presence feels meaningful. There is no pressure to attend everything, no quiet guilt for choosing solitude. Being alone is respected here. And because of that, being together feels different. Lighter, more honest. Moments of coming together often carry a gentle ritual quality. Not formal, not rigid, simply familiar. Regular gatherings exist, but without obligation. Shared meals, open conversations, evenings where nothing specific needs to happen. These moments are not optimized, planned for productivity. They exist to mark time, to create rhythm, to remind people that life unfolds between tasks. Rituals do not bind people, they anchor them. In these gatherings, people are not required to present a version of themselves. There is no expectation to be entertaining, to have news, to perform success. Silence is welcome. Listening is valued. Conversation flows naturally, sometimes slowly, sometimes with pauses that are not rushed to be filled. Attention here is undivided. Devices remain quiet, not because of rules, but because distraction has lost its appeal. Being present has become satisfying enough. Over time, trust has become the quiet foundation of society. Not blind trust, not idealized harmony, but a shared understanding that people are not in competition for worth. Disagreements still exist, differences remain, but they are approached with curiosity rather than defense, because no one needs to prove their value through dominance. In this future, being heard is more important than being right. Belonging here is not about fitting in. It is about being included without conditions. People move between groups freely. Identities are fluid. Roles are temporary. You are not defined by a single function or a single community. And because belonging is not scarce, it is no longer guarded. As these moments of connection gently come to an end, there's no abrupt separation, no rush back into urgency. People leave with a sense of nourishment, not excitement, not stimulation, but something steadier. A quiet reassurance that they are not alone. And as the day continues, attention begins to turn inward again, toward reflection, toward learning, toward growth. Community does not replace individuality. It supports it. And what grows next is shaped by that support. Learning no longer begins with assessment. There are no early labels, no fixed expectations about what someone should become. Learning unfolds as a personal journey, guided by curiosity rather than comparison. People are not measured against one another. They are supported in discovering what draws them in. Questions matter more than answers. Exploration matters more than certainty. And because no one is rushed to prove competence, learning becomes lighter, more honest, more enduring. Each person follows a different rhythm of learning here. Some move slowly and deeply, staying with a subject for years. Others explore widely, connecting ideas across disciplines. Neither path is considered superior. There's no single ideal trajectory, no universal timeline. Instead, learning adapts to the individual. Strengths are noticed early, not to narrow possibilities, but to open them. Difficulties are approached with patience rather than correction. The question is never, why are you behind? It is, what kind of support would help you move forward? Technology plays a role here, but it has learned restraint. Artificial intelligence supports learning quietly and attentively. It does not dictate paths. It does not evaluate worth. Instead, it listens. It adapts explanations to the way a person thinks. It offers perspectives, not conclusions. When confusion arises, it slows down. When curiosity deepens, it expands gently. Technology in this future does not replace human guidance. It amplifies understanding. And because it is not used to rank or pressure, trust in learning grows. Learning does not end with a certain age here. It continues naturally, woven into everyday life. People return to learning not because they must, but because interest resurfaces. New questions emerge. Old passions are revisited. Growth is no longer framed as constant improvement. It is seen as refinement, a quiet deepening of perspective. Learning becomes less about acquisition and more about integration, about making sense of experience. Mistakes are not hidden here. They are shared openly without embarrassment, because failure is no longer equated with inadequacy. It is recognized as a natural signal within exploration. When something does not work, attention turns to understanding, not blame. This changes everything. People take thoughtful risks. They explore unfamiliar ideas. They remain open longer, because nothing essential is at stake. Dignity is never withdrawn. Intelligence is no longer defined by speed or accumulation. It is recognized in awareness, in empathy, in the ability to connect ideas across contexts. Wisdom is valued as much as knowledge, understanding as much as recall. Learning becomes a way of relating to the world, not a race through information. And because of that, the society that emerges feels calmer, more thoughtful, more capable of responding to complexity without panic. As the day moves forward, learning does not feel exhausting. It feels nourishing. There is a sense that growth has occurred, even if nothing tangible can be pointed to. And as attention begins to soften, the focus gently shifts again, from development to reflection, from exploration to integration. As the day begins to slow, there is no sharp transition, no sudden switch from activity to exhaustion. Evening arrives gradually, like a soft lowering of light. People do not collapse into rest. They arrive there. The rhythm of the day loosens its grip, and what remains is a gentle awareness of having been present. There is no need to account for everything that happened. No pressure to evaluate the day. What mattered was met with attention. That is enough. Evenings are often shared here. Not always, and not by obligation. But when people come together, it is without agenda. No plans to optimize the time. No expectations to fill silence. Sometimes there's conversation. Sometimes quiet activities unfold side by side. Reading, walking, simple creative expression, listening to music without distraction. Being together does not require constant exchange. Presence itself has become meaningful. The evening was not used to escape the day. There is no urgent need to numb or distract. Instead, people allow the experiences of the day to settle naturally. Thoughts drift. Moments are revisited quietly. Learning, work, connection. All of it finds its place. Integration happens without effort. The mind does not cling. The body releases tension without instruction. Rest becomes something that unfolds on its own. There is a subtle feeling that accompanies the evening here. Not excitement, not accomplishment, but completeness. Not because everything was finished, but because nothing essential was neglected. People sense that the day was lived rather than endured, and that feeling carries gently into rest. As night deepens, attention turns inward again. Reflection does not feel analytical. It feels spacious. There's room for gratitude without comparison, for curiosity about tomorrow without anticipation. The future does not press forward. It remains open, inviting, unforced. And in that openness, rest becomes deep. Sleep is not a shutdown. It is a continuation. A quiet carrying forward of everything that mattered. The day does not end abruptly. It softens. It dissolves. And what remains is a calm trust that tomorrow will arrive. And so the rhythm continues, not as repetition, but as flow. When nothing needs to happen, time begins to feel different. Not slower, not faster, just less demanding. There is no next step waiting, no decision asking to be made, no direction pulling your thoughts forward. You are simply here. In this moment, progress is not measured. Productivity is irrelevant. And purpose does not need to explain itself. Existence is enough. The future does not disappear when nothing happens. It remains present, quietly, patiently, waiting without urgency. Perhaps this is where balance begins, not in movement, but in stillness that feels safe, not in action, but in permission. There is nothing to prepare for, nothing to optimize, nothing to improve before it passes. This moment does not need permission to be enough. When nothing needs to happen, the world feels less fragmented, not divided into goals and obstacles, successes and failures, before and after. Just presence. This is not a pause from life. This is part of it. A quiet layer beneath movement. A foundation that does not rush. You do not need to improve this moment. You do not need to use it wisely. You do not need to remember it later. It exists whether you hold it or not. When nothing needs to happen, the body remembers how to rest without being told. Breath settles. Muscles release without instruction. Thoughts may still appear. They always do. But now they arrive quietly. They do not demand attention. They do not ask to be followed. They pass, like weather far in the distance. There is no need to decide which thoughts matter. There is no need to finish them. Some remain unfinished. Some dissolve halfway through, and that is perfectly fine. When nothing needs to happen, identity becomes lighter. You are not what you are doing. You are not what you are becoming. You are simply present, without definition. This is not absence. This is not emptiness. This is a fullness that does not announce itself. A quiet completeness that does not need recognition. The future does not disappear here. It rests. Not paused. Not delayed. Just resting until movement feels natural again. Perhaps this is where clarity begins. Not through answers, but through silence that feels safe. Not through direction, but through stillness that holds. When nothing needs to happen, progress takes a different form. It no longer pushes forward. It deepens. There is no finish line waiting, no moment you are supposed to reach. The space has no edge. If attention fades, let it. If awareness softens, allow it. Nothing here needs to be held. The mind does not need to be quiet. It only needs permission to stop performing. To stop proving. To stop explaining itself. When nothing needs to happen, even the idea of time slows down. Minutes lose their shape. Seconds dissolve into feeling. There is only a gentle sense of being here. This is not an escape from the future. It is a way of meeting it without resistance, without fear, without hurry. You do not need to remember this moment. You do not need to return to it later. It remains available, whether you notice it or not. When nothing needs to happen, rest becomes effortless. Awareness widens. Then narrows. Then drifts again. Like waves that do not need direction. If sleep comes, let it come. If thought continues, let it wander. There is no correct way to be here. The future will still be there when movement returns. It does not vanish because you rested. It waits. With patience. This is enough. Not forever. Not as a goal. Just for now.